Pause for just a moment. Don't give any answer. Just listen. If someone were to ask you very calmly today, what are you doing with your life? Could you answer immediately? Or would salary, degree, relationship, age, pressure, all start echoing in your mind at once? Most of us are not living life. We are managing life. Waking up in the morning, rushing, fulfilling someone else's expectations, and collapsing into sleep at night exhausted. And somewhere in between, a voice comes, is this all there is? Krishnamurti says, the greatest deception is not that the world is leading you in the wrong direction. The greatest deception is that you never asked yourself where you are going. We look for answers in religion, security in career, comfort in relationships, but we are afraid to understand ourselves, because if we saw the truth, perhaps we would have to question our entire life. And this very question is the center of today's audiobook, What Are You Doing With Your Life? This audiobook will not motivate you. It will not give you directions. It will do only one thing, place you face to face with yourself. Chapter 1. Conditioning the Invisible Prison. We often assume that we are free. We feel that what we think, what we choose, what we want, all of it is our own. But if we look a little deeper, honestly, an uncomfortable question arises. Is all of this truly ours? From childhood, there are voices all around us. No one shouts loudly, but slowly, every day, without stopping, these voices settle inside us. Home says, don't do this, become like that. School says, get good marks, only then are you something. Religion says, right and wrong are already decided. Don't ask questions. Society says, what will people say is the most important thing, and we keep listening. We listen for so long that one day we feel, this is my thinking. This is where conditioning begins. Krishnamurti says the most dangerous prison is the one that is not recognized as a prison. The jail whose walls are invisible, in that very jail, a person spends their entire life. Conditioning is not one event. It is a continuous process. Every praise, every scolding, every comparison, every you are like this, every you should be like that, slowly takes shape in our mind. Then one day we mistake ambition for our dream, competition for growth, fear for responsibility. We say this is what I want. But Krishnamurti asks, have you ever asked yourself why you want this? Did you want to become an engineer, or did you see that society respects engineers? Do you want to be successful, or are you afraid of being called a failure? Often what we call choice is not a choice at all. It is a conditioned reaction. We want what we have seen others wanting. We fear what everyone has always feared. We consider success to be what society has named success. And the saddest thing is, all of this seems normal to us. Krishnamurti says when an entire society is sick, sickness starts to seem normal. We live by comparing our lives. We measure our worth through other people's eyes. And then we say, I am free. But freedom doesn't exist where thinking is borrowed. True freedom does not come from rebellion. Rebellion is often itself a reaction. You stand against some belief, but keeping that very belief at the center. Freedom begins when you can see without fear where your thinking came from. Krishnamurti talks about awareness. An awareness that does not judge, that does not rush to fix, that simply sees. When you observe your thoughts, you begin to see how many things you think automatically, how many reactions happen without your permission. And in that very seeing, conditioning begins to loosen. You don't suddenly become special, you don't become enlightened, but you become honest. You can see this fear is not mine, this ambition is learned, this guilt was planted, and the day you see this for the first time, your life begins to be yours. Chapter 2. Fear the Hidden Controller. We often treat fear as a small thing. We think fear only comes from failure or some big loss. But if you honestly look within yourself, you will see that fear is very deep, very old, and very quietly running our lives. We fear being left alone, so we remain part of the crowd, even if that crowd doesn't understand us. We fear being proved wrong, so we think 100 times before speaking the truth. We fear becoming different from society, so we do what everyone else is doing. And slowly we accept all of this as our own decisions. But Krishnamurti says where there is fear, there cannot be clarity. And where there is no clarity, there is no intelligence either. Fear does not let us think. Fear does not let us see. Fear does not let us stay in the present. Fear always lives in the future. What if this happens? What if I fail? What if people reject me? Our mind keeps running into tomorrow and loses today. Krishnamurti does not treat fear as an enemy. He says fighting fear is itself another form of fear. When you fight fear, you give it more strength. You say you should not exist, and that very resistance keeps fear alive. We often tell ourselves, I should not feel afraid. But saying this is not understanding fear. It is only suppressing it, and the fear that is suppressed comes back somewhere else in an even more dangerous form. Krishnamurti talks about observing, an observation that does not analyze, does not find justification, does not make excuses, simply sees. When fear comes, we immediately start doing something. We distract ourselves, keep ourselves busy, or try to prove ourselves strong. But observing is not doing anything. Observing is simply being present. When you see fear without running, you feel it in the heartbeat, in the pace of breath, in the tightness of the body, and in that complete attention, fear begins to change. Chapter 3. You will find that fear is not a solid thing. It is a movement. It starts from a thought, becomes a sensation in the body, and then creates a story. When you don't enter the story, when you only watch the movement, fear gradually loses its grip. Krishnamurti says, fear does not end through courage. Fear ends through understanding. Courage is often itself a reaction to fear, but understanding sees fear at its root. And when fear dissolves, there is no extraordinary experience, no fireworks, no victory feeling, just a deep peace, a clarity. In that clarity, you are not trying to impress anyone. You are not trying to fit into any role. You simply are what you are. And perhaps this is the real intelligence, the intelligence that is not born from fear, that is not driven by fear, that is born from freedom. Chapter 3. Becoming versus being. Our entire life seems to run in one direction toward becoming something. From childhood, we are asked, what will you be when you grow up? And that very question slowly becomes the center of our thinking. Become successful, become strong, become spiritual, become positive, as if what we are right now is incomplete, as if the present is just a step and real life will begin somewhere ahead. Krishnamurti questions this entire process. He asks, have you ever noticed that this desire to become something creates continuous conflict within us? When you want to become something, you are dissatisfied with your present. You say, I am not right as I am now. I should change. I should become better. And in that very moment, an inner conflict begins. One part says I am like this. The other part says I should not be like this. Krishnamurti says this is the conflict. And where there is conflict, there cannot be peace. We connect transformation with effort. We think if I try harder, if I bring more discipline, I will change. But effort is always towards some ideal, and ideal is always born from imagination. You create an image, I want to become like this, and then keep comparing yourself to that image. This comparison breaks you. Krishnamurti says where there is an image, there is no truth. When you want to shape yourself into an image, you are not seeing yourself at all. You are only following an idea. Being does not mean trying to become something. Being means being able to see completely what is. When you are angry, usually what do? You say I should not be angry, or I need to become calm. But Krishnamurti says in that moment, if you simply observe your anger without trying to change it, that very process of seeing changes the anger. This sounds paradoxical, but this is the truth. Transformation does not happen when you try to change. Transformation happens when you clearly see what you are. Clear seeing means seeing without choosing. No like or dislike, no right or wrong, just awareness. When there is awareness, effort is not needed. Effort is needed where there is resistance. And resistance arises only when you run away from being. Krishnamurti says you don't push a flower to open, you give it time and space. In the same way, the mind also changes naturally in clear attention. When you are in being, you stop living for the future. You are fully present right now. And in that very presence, a different kind of depth comes to life. No goal, no rush to become, no fighting with yourself, simply seeing completely what is. And perhaps this is real freedom, because the moment you step out of the race to become something, for the first time life truly begins. Chapter 4. Relationship as a mirror. We often look for one thing in relationship security, someone who stays with us, who understands us, who doesn't let us feel alone, and this longing is very human. But Krishnamurti raises one deep question. He says the moment relationship becomes your need in that very moment, love begins to end. We turn relationships into support. We want the other to complete us, to give us stability, to assure us that we are not alone. But when relationship becomes dependency, fear enters it. Fear of losing, fear of being left, fear of being alone, and where there is fear, love cannot exist. Krishnamurti says, relationship is not between two people. It becomes between two fears. We say, I cannot live without you. But this is not love. This is attachment. Attachment means using the other person for your own emotional safety. And when the other does not meet our expectations, frustration arises, anger comes, complaints begin. We want the other to change. We want them to become what we need. But Krishnamurti says the moment you want someone to change, in that moment, you have stopped understanding them. The real purpose of relationship is not to give happiness. Relationship is a mirror. In that mirror, you see yourself. When jealousy arises, it is not because of the other. It is because of the insecurity within you. When fear arises, it is not from the other's behavior. It is from the emptiness within you. Attachment forms because you don't know how to be alone. But we project all of this onto the other. We say, why are you like this? Why don't you change? Krishnamurti says as long as you don't see yourself, no relationship can be clear. If you lose yourself in a relationship, you cannot find anyone else either. A true relationship exists when two people are not running from each other, but from themselves. When you can be alone without fear of loneliness, only then can you truly be with someone. Krishnamurti says love is not possession. Love is freedom. Where there is freedom, jealousy cannot survive. Where there is freedom, fear begins to dissolve. Relationship is no longer a burden. It becomes a place of learning. Every reaction shows you something. Every conflict reveals some layer within you. And if instead of blaming the other, you have the courage to see yourself, the relationship changes. Not the other, you change. And when you change, the relationship takes on a different quality on its own. Chapter 5. Awareness without choice. All of Krishnamurti's teachings come to rest here. No method, no discipline, no ideal, simply seeing. We talk a lot about observing, but in reality we rarely see without judgment. The moment a thought comes, we label it. This is good. This is wrong. This is not spiritual. I should not think like this. And in that very moment, observation stops. Krishnamurti says, where there is judgment, observation cannot happen, because judgment always comes from the past. It is based on memory. And when the past comes in between the present, cannot be seen. Awareness without choice means seeing without any agenda. No desire to change, no effort to suppress, no greed to hold on. Just seeing, as if seeing for the first time. When anger arises, what do we usually do? We say, this anger is wrong, or I should become calm. But Krishnamurti says in that moment, if you simply observe the anger without giving it any direction, that very process of seeing transforms the anger. Because when you see completely, the observer and the observed do not remain separate. Usually we think, I am watching the anger. But Krishnamurti says you are the anger. And when this distance breaks, conflict also breaks. Awareness is not a practice. You cannot do it for 10 minutes every day, because the moment you practice, choice enters. Awareness happens when you are completely present, without effort, without direction, like how you look at the sky. You don't try to change it, you simply see. Krishnamurti says action is not born from thought, it is born from clarity. When there is clarity, you don't need rules of right and wrong. A clear mind naturally knows what to do, and that action is not violent, not selfish, not forced. It is natural, simple, peaceful. When you learn to see, life doesn't need to be changed. Life begins to unfold within you. And perhaps this is the right life, not taken from any book, not borrowed from any teacher, but born from that clarity that comes when you simply see. Write in the comments, "I want to change," and share your experience. Subscribe to One Book